Hello, YouTubers, and hello, live streamers. This is going to be yet another live streamed Locked On MLB, where we're going to be talking about the fact that all three American League divisions have a champion crowned. The Yankees are the last one to do it, but there is one that stormed their way to a division title in kind of a shocking manner. Dare people in Cleveland be optimistic? Well, I am going to ask Jeff Ellis of Locked On Guardians to join us and talk a little bit about the remarkable September that the Guardians had, and will that extend to October? This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans and YouTubers and live streamers, and welcome to Locked On MLB. This is the podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball all season long on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your host, Emmy-nominated television producer, comedian, writer, teacher, filmmaker, all of the above, and podcaster for the last decade. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. If you're watching me on the YouTube, hey, there's my lower third. Feel free to call me Sully. You could follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. And be sure to tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB, or check out some of the other great shows on the Locked On Podcast Network, including, let's just take one at random, Locked On Guardians with Jeff Ellis. Jeff Ellis has been a guest on our show several times, both as an individual guest and in a roundtable situation. But we're going to talk a little bit today about the fact that his Guardians have won what looked like was going to be an airtight division battle, and it turned out to be anything but. And by the way, if you're watching us on the live feed, throw in questions in the chat. We'll be happy to talk about it. But hey, let's get right to it. Here's Jeff Ellis. Where are you, buddy? Are you there? Hold on. Oh, there you are. Now I put the background in. Sorry, this is what happens when you're doing it live. There it is. There's your background. Sorry, there's a little glitch there. It looks like we got a couple eyeballs watching us in the live stream. Hello, everybody. Jump in the chat if you want. How you doing, Jeff?
You know, I'm doing pretty well. If you see my eyes going to the side, I'm just kind of checking this extra innings affair for the Cleveland Guardians. But I won't lie, it's been fun. It's a fun team in Cleveland. It really is. There's, for the most part, you look at it, and it's just a group of, even the underachievers are just fun people, and there's great stories about them. And yeah, it's hard to not like this team. And kind of one of my running themes of late has been, listen, the name change is a hot button issue, and you and I have done whole discussions on that multiple times. But if you are not following this team because you're mad about a name, you're just hurting yourself, because this is such a fun team right now, and missing out on them is just doing yourself a disservice. So, yeah, I mean, right now, like I said, extra inning affair. We had an immaculate inning in this game, the fourth in franchise history.
Yeah,
so that's pretty fun.
Tell us about that, and describe. I'm sure most of our fans know what an immaculate inning is, but to fill them in.
So an immaculate inning is an inning where a pitcher only needs 9 pitches and he strikes out all 3 batters. It's kind of, I call it the reliever equivalent of a perfect game, because, you know, they don't get those opportunities. So the immaculate inning is very rare, very cool to see. Like I said, it's the 4th time. The last time it happened was Zach Plesac in 2020, when he was otherworldly Zach Plesac. That one year, it's like, you know, that old, which one of these is not like the other? That would be the Plesac year of that. Carlos Carrasco in 2018, then Justin Masterson in 2014. So you think of all the great pitching Cleveland have had in the last decade. I mean, they have 4 different Cy Young winners, which is kind of crazy, because before this last decade, they had, I believe, like maybe 2 Cy Young winners. So they've been an absolute, those are the names that pop up for the Immaculate Inning. So it's kind of random, but it's fun. Where obviously there's bigger stories that are going on and occurring in this game, but that is the one that I was most likely to lean into hard.
Well, yeah, I mean that's an amazing story, and I think that, and the thing that is incredible, and I was talking on a podcast I was a guest on called Baseball PhD. It's unbelievable that this is not just the youngest American League team or the youngest Major League team; they've been the youngest AAA team. I mean, this is an unbelievably young ball club that we have here, and they're going to be around. I mean, if you missed out on this year, this team's coming back next year. I mean, this is basically the core of who's going to be here. I mean, when you look at when next year, especially after re-signing Jose Ramirez, who's the old man of this team. I think they probably could have used one veteran hitter or another in the lineup, but you can't ask for a better month of what came about here.
No, you really can't. I think they're 18-2 in their last 20 games, which is over like 19 days because they've had those double headers. It's been a weird year. For anyone who let's hit on all the hot button stuff between the name change. Let's talk about climate issues. I've never seen so many double headers and canceled games in my life as this team has had this year. So they've had to overcome that. They've had the least home games in all of baseball this year, partially due to the lost games they've had. But they just keep winning. And for as much as everyone likes to be like, well, it's the American League Central. The Central's bad, this and that. The White Sox and Twins were solid teams when they faced them. Yeah, they struggled with Seattle, but they beat Houston the last time they faced them in a series. They beat Toronto the last time they faced them in a series. You can go through. They swept the Padres last time they faced them in a series. It's not like it's all cupcakes. Yes, they have cupcakes and they're taking advantage of cupcakes. They're also just a really good team.
Well, the Astros play in the West where there's only one other major league team in that division. I mean, like the Angels, after the first 2 months, the Angels have stunk. The Rangers stink. The A's stink. There's only one real team in that division that's any good. That's Seattle. I mean, look at the thing that's really amazing about Cleveland. I talked about this ad nauseum, but they went into it. It was Minnesota tied them the day before Labor Day, and Chicago was right on their heels. And it looked like we were about to have a 3-team, totally pick 'em, flip a coin, pennant race down the stretch, which is amazing. But what Cleveland just did is they absolutely pummeled Minnesota. Minnesota's going to finish the season sub 500. And the Twins only won 1 out of 9 games, and the White Sox didn't fare much better. And, when you go for the fact that there was a dead freaking even this month on the 5th of September, and in 22 days, they've added 10 games to the lead on Chicago and 12 games to the lead to Minnesota. That's unheard of.
Yeah, they just, on a very basic level, they took care of business, right? Like they just going through those games. They had more problems in the last month with the Tigers than they had with the Twins or the White Sox.
Yeah.
And again, the Tigers just swept the White Sox, so maybe they're just kryptonite to teams near the top. But it's something to watch, and it's going to be interesting. They're facing the Rays now. The Rays just blew this thing up here in the 11th inning, so probably going to lose this one to the Rays. But that could potentially be their first round matchup. So this could be a preview of coming attractions in general when you're just talking about this team and what's on the horizon.
If they split, they have after this, I believe they have 8 games after this one. And if they split them, they'll win 90 games. And, a 90-win team, I think, look at this just could be me, but I think that there's something about having your team winning 90 games that feels like you're more than just a team that's the beneficiary of a easy schedule or an easy division. If you win 90 games, you've had to beat other teams outside of your division. And Yeah, the way that they've been playing, I mean, look at it's. I think it's going to be the type of team that is going to, have that little extra boost and give Cleveland fans a lot of pleasure in the weeks and months, maybe in years to come. And if you're looking for pleasure, I recommend BlueChew. The nights are getting longer, but guess what? Teams are out there trying to please their fans, and you might be trying to please the one you love. And this episode is brought to you by BlueChew. Look at confidence can take you only so far in life, especially that's true in the bedroom. When it's time to step up to the plate, that's where BlueChew comes in. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead. Jeff, write this down. You can be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. BlueChew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and a fraction of the cost. Hey, sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of the licensed medical providers. I talked to Mike, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. I got mine in 2 days. The best part, it's all done online. No visits to the doctor's office. No walk into the lobby and say, "Oh, you're looking for a refill, Mr. Sullivan." No, please leave me alone. No awkward conversations. "Hey, Jeff, you're here too?" And no waiting in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA. I like these pills to be domestic and prepared and shipped to your door in a discreet package. It doesn't say BlueChew in bright letters. No, nor does it say Built Bar. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it, then do it. We've got a special deal for all Locked On MLB listeners. And I'll talk to Mike, see if we can get it for Locked On Guardians listeners too. Try BlueChew for free when you use promo code Locked On at checkout and just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code Locked On. Receive your first month for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring the podcast.
Our first sponsor ever, I believe,
first,
right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, look who's here. We got David Samuel Blaine, who's become one of my favorite listeners. How you doing, David, buddy? How you doing? Are you happy about the Yankees clinching the division? It was not, all that talk about, the great collapse. They had this, the great collapse. They had that. They've clinched the division with a week to spare. They have an 8.5 game lead. What a tremendous collapse they had. So they're not going to win 110 games. So they'll win 98. So it's crazy. David Samuel Blaine said, let's see. What do you say here? Let's read what he said. Poorest Don Mattingly, the Marlins is out in 2023. Yeah, well, he was there for 7 years. Sorry there, buddy. He was there for 7 years, David. So I can't feel that badly for Don Mattingly. But they got him in the playoffs in the season where they went to was the COVID year. So and they lost their first ever playoff series. Remember, they won the series in the wild card round, but then they lost to I believe it was Atlanta in the division series. And that was the first time in history the Marlins ever lost a playoff series because they ran the table in 97. Sorry, Jeff. And they ran the table in 2003. Sorry, Stacey Gotsulias. And so the Marlins finally lost a playoff series. But, Don Mattingly, I bet he's going to find work elsewhere. But Kim Eng was the new GM there, and this was not her pick. So you get the sense that she's going to have her person in there. I'm always a big fan of bringing in, get your drinks out, folks, because everyone does a shot every time I suggest to hire one of Bruce Bochy's lieutenants. But Roberto Kelly should be a major league manager. Hensley Mueller should be a major league manager. Give him a shot. But we're not talking about, and also, hey, you were talking about, hey, David, talk about the Yankees there. They clinched the division. Congratulations to them. But Judge, who it looked like he was going to homer at will, faced the Red Sox and couldn't get a home run against them. And he has yet to hit a home run in the Rogers Center. He walked 4 times today. I know some people are mad at them, but I'm going to say something that may offend some people. The Blue Jays are trying to win. The Blue Jays are still in a pennant race. They're not here to serve up home runs to freaking Aaron Judge. They're trying to get to October. So if they want to walk him or pitch around him, that's I hate to say this, you may not want to hear this, Yankee fans, but that'd be the smart thing for them to do, to let someone else defeat them. So I part of me thinks it would be absolutely hilarious with 8 games left if Judge goes homerless the final 8 games. There would be part of it, especially because they have the brand new the brand new balls that they throw out for each game. Have you seen that there's special Aaron Judge balls so they can keep track if he hits a home run? I would love it if he finished the season with 60 homers. There would be something intrinsically hilarious about that. And I would hope they paid for the Maris family for all of their trips that have been going left and right. I think Jeff is transfixed on the game.
Yeah, sorry. No, I wasn't sure. When it comes down to this whole series, hey, I got to root for Maris. He's a former Cleveland Indian. People forget about it, but I almost typed Cleveland Maris. I wanted to pull up the exact trade. Cleveland was really bad for a lot of years, and one of those main reasons is they were the Yankees farm system. So Maris at age 23, he was traded to Kansas City, then Kansas City to New York, and one of those great maneuvers. They
I did a whole podcast the other day, if you heard it, where I talked about there was basically the A's and the Yankees were committing collusion in the 50s because Johnson, the owner of the A's, had a financial stake in Yankee Stadium, and the A's just would accept whatever players the Yankees sent to them and whatever quality players they sent back. And a lot of the other teams were enraged that the Indians traded Roger Maris to the A's because they knew that meant his next stop was the Yankees. So if they had held on to him.
I will say this, though. Part of me is like, in terms of all of their awful trades, like Cleveland got Vic Power, who would be an all-star the next 2 years, and had some pretty strong performances. And just from a personal narrative, Woody Held is a top 5 second baseman in franchise history. Had unusual power, definitely for that position. I think he might have been first. No, he was second baseman then, and it was my dad's favorite player growing up. So I have a hard time hating on the Maris deal, just more from the personal perspective than anything else.
Look at the deal when Kansas City dealt them to New York. They just took back like Hank Bauer and Don Larson, all these guys who were great before, but were breaking down, and they sent them back like Roger Maris. And I think Ralph Terry was in that trade, who became a World Series MVP.
See, they got Kent Headley and Joe DiMasterati. Kent Headley had a negative WAR. Masterati had a negative WAR. Don Larson and Hank Bauer were the names I recognize from the.
Yeah, because they were great players in championship years, but were broken down by then.
Yeah.
So there's here, take our broken down veterans and give me your good players. And that's what they did.
Yep.
And it was well, okay. I went on a whole big rant on that before. By the way, David Samuel Blaine, my buddy. What else was the second question you asked? I'm gonna put it up here. Who's the next top New York Mets player? I assume you mean on the current squad. Pete Alonso is had tons of tremendous hits this year. Lindor has been everything they could ask for. Although I will say the Guardians certainly got some good players back in exchange from, and Lindor, McNeil, Alonso for your regular players, and obviously Scherzer and DeGrom. That's no small thing that's going on there, though. The fact that that division's on the verge of, I think it is tied right now, and
you have a 100-win wild card team, right?
Well, you had one of those last year too, but you had the one game playoff with Los Angeles, But the but the fact of the matter is that um, with them tied and like what 7 or 8 games left to play, both teams are making the playoffs. Obviously, both teams are going to wind up with 100 wins. I mean, the Mets aren't choking; they've won 7 of their last 10 games. It's just that the Braves don't lose either. But if the Mets have to play a wild card series, that means they're going to burn out DeGrom and Scherzer in that first round, and probably wouldn't have either one of them available until Game 3 of the division series. So that's dangerous. That's a dangerous situation for them. David also said the Dodgers better not underestimate San Diego. I think they can. No offense, Javi Reyes. They're 21 games ahead of San Diego.
Seem to always underperform.
Yeah,
like it's just that thing with that team. It just feels like they always underperform.
If the Dodgers win today, this is game 154 for Los Angeles, and right now, what's the score? Right now, LA's losing to San Diego. Oh no, maybe David's onto something. If the Dodgers pull this win off, they'll have the highest win total in franchise history for a single season in 150 with 154 games. With still 8 games left to play. I mean, this is going to be the best regular season team the Dodgers have ever had in terms of win-loss records. I think they're going to be okay. Hey, let's get back to the Guardians.
Game is officially over. Cleveland did get 1 in the 11th. It was not enough. They dropped the game 6-5 today. Trevor Stephan, greatest Rule 5 selection in Guardians history, by the way, picks up the loss. It's him and Tom Waddell, a reliever from Scotland, of all places, are the only 2 guys with greater than 2 career WAR that the Guardians have ever selected in the Rule 5, which says a lot because it's the same franchise that has lost Kelly Gruber, Anthony Santander, Hector Rondon, and I can keep going. Somewhere I have a list I went through. So just some fun facts. But yeah, Cleveland drops a winnable game. The other fun fact for this game, it's the first time Cleveland has faced Corey Kluber, I believe, since he left. So it was Corey Kluber versus Shane Bieber. And your Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan matchup for this one. You can pick who's Darth Vader or Obi-Wan. Neither were very they weren't ineffective, but neither were living quite up to the standards of expectations of this year.
All right, so let's just take a look at this. At this point, Seattle, Tampa, and Toronto are basically going to be in a scrum where you're probably going to find out who Cleveland's going to face on the final weekend of the season. I think it's a fool's errand to try and sort of say who you'd rather face. But let's just take let's look into our crystal ball a little bit at the team right now. In that wild card series, you have to give Bieber a start, right? He has to start game 1. And probably McKenzie starts game 2, right? Or are you going to go Quantrill?
Yeah, it's McKenzie. No, it's definitely McKenzie for 2. One could debate McKenzie versus Bieber for for first or second, however you want to run those. It's a little hyperbole because I think people don't realize just how good Bieber's been outside of he's top 5 in most advanced statistical categories. You have those 2 clearly as the top 2, Quantrill at 3, and if you need someone beyond them, that's where it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Look at, don't look now. Bieber has an outside chance. How many innings did he pitch tonight?
Let's see. He threw 6 innings tonight.
Okay, so he right now has 195 innings for the year. He could finish the season with 200 innings, which would be, in this day and age, makes you a workhorse. McKenzie's had a fine year. But Quantrill, Chevali, it's Chevali, right? Am I saying it right?
Savali.
Right? Savali. Oh, he pitched very well the other day. Do you take a risk and start someone like a Savali or Like, who else would you? I mean, you're not going to start Kirk McCarty. I mean, who else would you possibly start in a playoff situation other than Quantrill?
So I really think if Savali has just he keeps getting hurt. You got Plesac, who's supposed to return in the next week. And then the other one is honestly the rookie Cody Morris, where again, it's injuries. Like if he had not been hurt for extended periods of time, he missed, he came back in July, like mid-July from an injury that he sustained in spring training. He might have been up before that. He might have been with his team longer. He's only had 2 games in the post since he's been called up where he went over 60 pitches. Like he has been very limited this year. So I'm kind of curious what they're going to do.
Someone in the chat has a definite thought on this, and it's Aaron Saltzbrenner says Savali has to be the next guy, right?
The thing with Savali is he's been very good in the start since he came back. But this is his worst year ever. Like you get into the numbers, you get into the performance. He has been incredibly inconsistent. So I just kind of
easy for you to say.
I got some small concerns, and there's that part of it that's also like, Cody Morris has looked really good, and there is almost no tape on him. Like he's had 4 big league starts. He throws hard, he misses bats. Sometimes that's it's more valuable when teams have seen less, and in that regard, he might be the guy. I mean, you can go back to 2020, last time this team made the postseason. Savali was the reliever they left on the bench, or the starter who got turned to a reliever type of deal. Very different situation. I mean, as a team that had Carrasco, Plesac again was in that one exceptional year of performance. But yeah, I don't know if it's Savali, just because again he's thrown like what I did the math the other day. He's thrown like 23. He's thrown less than 30 innings since mid-July.
Right. Well, maybe that's here's my question. Here's my question, and this might be a dangerous thing to ask. What would happen if you started Bieber game 1, and then like a Savali, and you expect Savali, and then maybe to dip into your bullpen, hoping that you win games 1 and 2 and have a Tristan McKenzie available to start game 1 of the division series against either New York or Houston? Probably New York.
Yeah, you know what? So the last time I was on, I talked about the whole, Jin Yang, the horse racing equation. Do you remember me discussing Chinese horse racing?
Yeah.
And there's that part of me that says, like, if you're gonna throw something crazy, like you talk about, it is, maybe you throw Quantrill in game 1 and you see how everything else lines up. But yeah, it's tricky. And at the end of the day, Terry Francona, who has his ups and downs, I'm not 100% of a Kool-Aid drinker just because of some of I would like to see a little bit more leaning into the advanced thought instead of it just, his big focus is, do they hit lefty? Do they hit righty in lineup construction? And that drives me a little batty. But in the postseason is when he shines. Like he comes out and does original things. So I wouldn't be shocked by any decision he kind of makes. And I could see him going with what you talked about there. I could see him like doing a bullpen by committee because the bullpen has just been so ridiculously good. Like if he goes out and were to do something like, Sam Henches, who was a starter, he got moved to the pen this year, who has had the best ERA of any reliever in baseball in the second half. You throw out the lefty, have him go 2 innings. The whole lineup has now been set up to face a lefty. And then you bring in someone like Savali to pitch the next 4 when it is a now right-handed heavy lineup. So they're going to set up a lineup to hit the left-handers. Then you put in the righty quickly. And I could see something like that happening as well. We saw Cleveland do similar things with Kurt McCarty earlier in the year. But in the postseason, why not go with your top lefty? Now, the downside is that eliminates essentially the only reliable left-hander in your pen, but it could really throw a team off. And again, at the other side of things, I mean, last time this team made a World Series, Ryan Merritt, I believe, won the clincher against the Blue Jays. And then did he ever pitch in the majors again after that? I mean, I don't know if he did. That might have been the end of his major league career. Was that game?
Well, there's so many times.
No, I'm sorry. He came back in 2017, so he did come back the next year.
There are 2 times where the Indians went on wonderful runs, and they were the Indians. But a key pitcher either being hurt or ineffective at the wrong time may have cost Cleveland a World Series title. I mean, think about in 2007, if you had a healthy and capable Cliff Lee, or even a mediocre Cliff Lee in that rotation, along with CC Sabathia and the man who claimed to be Fausto Carmona in the rotation, they beat Boston and probably would have slapped around Colorado in the World Series. And then of course,
no, that's the big what if.
And the other one is in 2016, Danny Salazar was reduced to a mop-up man, and Carlos Carrasco was injured for the postseason, and they had to ride Corey Kluber like a mule to the point where he was exhausted by Game 7. He had nothing left in the tank in Game 7.
And that's also, the infamous year that, they beat Toronto after Trevor Bauer's bleeding on baseballs because he cut his hand playing with drones.
Which is still not the biggest reason to shake your head at the existence of Trevor Bauer.
I know. It's like, do you bring him up? Do you not bring him up? But if we're just talking about that postseason, which is, I know it's hard, but like, I also just, if you're talking about the ridiculousness of that year, that they lost half their road, and I talked about on the show, that's why, like, this team is built the way they're built, and why this team never ripped it down to never did the full fire sale rebuild. Because I mean, that's the postseason. They had no business going anywhere at that close from winning it all. I've still got my Game 2 ticket and my program. If there's any Cubs fans who want to make me a really good offer on a World Series ticket stub and program from the first World Series game the Cubs had won in how many years? So I'll just put that out there.
If Jason Kipnis's foul ball doesn't hook foul in the bottom of the ninth, we're having a very different conversation about Cleveland's legacy. But anyway, I was like the only non Clevelander rooting against the Cubs in that World Series. I was rooting for Cleveland to win the World Series that year over the Cubs. I had 2 main reasons. First of all, I did not like Aroldis Chapman. I didn't want the image of Aroldis Chapman celebrating be the clip I see from this day forward. And fortunately, that was the clip we see of him is coughing up the Rajai Davis home run. And Mike Montgomery, of all people, got to be the one. Actually, the clip you really see is Rizzo jumping up and putting the ball in his back pocket. But and the other is I'm such a Francona fan. I love as a native New Englander. I'm a huge Francona fan, and I knew that if he won with the Red Sox and in Cleveland, that makes him the king of destroying curses. So, and it became so close.
Instead, it was Epstein, right?
Yeah.
It's the other guy from that run who became the king of curse destruction.
Well, maybe this is a curse destruction because I'm not trying to get ahead of ourselves because, we don't know what these wild card rounds are going to be like. I mean, whatever happens, Game 2 is an elimination game for somebody. And so that's probably one reason not to be playing games with rotation stuff like that. When if you lose Game 1, your back is to the wall. You lose any game, your back is to the wall the next day. But if Cleveland can somehow get past Tampa, Seattle, or Toronto, whichever one it is, and they'll have home field, they would face New York. And I think they're the exact worst team for New York to face. That they've got good pitching up and down, and that their offense is like a swarm of bees that would drive the team crazy.
Yeah, or midges, as it were.
Oh, right. Oh, how did I drop that reference? Oh my God.
To go, future guardian great Joba Chamberlain.
Oh God.
But no, that's like it's been weird seeing this narrative shift, and I get it. Like White Sox and Twins fans have to be incredibly frustrated, but all of a sudden I've seen a lot of like my Twitter. Maybe it's just I follow the wrong people retweeting stuff, but a lot of people being angry about Cleveland advancing, or this whole like narrative that like, so yeah, the Guardians Twitter account is making a big deal that no one believed them, and it's like, why? And I've seen multiple like impartial people, say negative things about it. I'm like, it isn't just like people not believing in you and you being successful, like 70 to 80% of the Hoosiers movie, like that, I was one of my first sports movies. Wasn't that Major League? And
Yeah,
not like that is sports.
this Bad
And
News Bears. It's
yeah,
that's every
it's everything. And
it's
all of a sudden,
Rocky.
yeah. And people are getting mad about them doing that, or if you're a Twins fan, or like the Twins have been hurt all year, so I understand frustration. If you're the White Sox, Tony La Russa, we got to check and make sure it wasn't betting on games, just with the way he sabotaged the season for them. Like, I understand their frustration, but like some of the negativity I've seen with Cleveland, I'm like, I don't get. This is a fun, scrappy team, and for anyone who wants to like shred them and talk about the division, I talked about on yesterday's show. They are second in FIP in the second half of the year for their bullpen, fielding independent pitching ERA, which is the best predictor. And I like FIP to XFIP because I don't think, for those who don't know, quick primer, XFIP normalizes home run rates. I don't like that. Some guys are more, the Guardians don't care about home runs. If you go and look at their data, they take guys with higher home run rates. They would much rather the ball go in the air than on the ground, because while it can be worse in the air, the more likelihood of outcomes are positive on a fly ball to a ground ball. So they intentionally build a team. So if you look at XFIP, their numbers are even better. But they're fifth all year in bullpen. They're top 10 in pitching. They are number one in most metrics defensively. They're number one in many metrics in terms of base running. It's an old school team. Number one in contact rates. Listen, power is abysmal and walks are abysmal. Those are not
But they
strong
put the
areas for
ball
this
in
team.
play.
But
They
they're
put
just
the ball
always
in
making
play.
contact.
Yeah.
And again, it's speed, it's base running, it's defense, it's some really phenomenal pitching. This is, having followed this team this is far and away the greatest bullpen I've ever seen. Like, yeah, okay, Trevor Stephan, we talked about it. Tonight, he gets the loss. It's
but
not his best performance, but like, it's still funny to me when people are like, Clase hasn't been very good in extra innings. He's got a 1.32 ERA. What do you want from the guy? Like, what do you expect? He probably doesn't get the credit he deserves. He probably, like, anytime anyone talks about the best reliever in baseball, you don't see his name brought up. It should be. It honestly should be. And there's just so many other players at the back end of this that make this an exceptional team and an exceptional bullpen, which bullpens win postseason. That team that advanced far, it was the bullpen. It was Andrew Miller, it was Cody Allen, it was those pieces more than the starters that got him into the World Series.
Well, as we wrap up here, I'm going to remind everyone there was a team. You have to go a long way back to think of it, but nobody expected them. They thought they were playing in a weak division, and their bullpen shocked every team that had a better record than them and ended up with a World Series parade. And that was last year's Braves. And so you take a look, the Brewers had the better rotation. The Dodgers were a 106-win team. The Astros could score at will. What stopped all three of those rounds was the fact that it was Matzik and Smith and Jackson, all those guys that no one could get a hit off of in the big moment. And in the end, Atlanta was standing tall. So it is. Will it be Cleveland's turn? I don't know. Neither do you. We're going to find out soon, but I think this is one of the most fun teams to watch in baseball. Jeff Ellis, where can people follow your show?
You can follow. The big one is the YouTube. If I can just take a second and say, go check out Locked On Guardians on YouTube. I want to pull up my subscriber count and quickly pause before sounds come. I'm sitting here at 682 subscribers. As anyone who listens to any of these shows knows, the big push is for 1,000. So if you want any Guardians talk, and then I'll also throw out, I do a lot of prospect talk and draft talk in general. So if you're not getting enough of that, if you're following Lindsay, you want even more, occasionally those are going to pop up in the feed over at Locked On Guardians.
All right. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about the Guardians and seeing if this will be the one year where everything clicks together with baseball's youngest team. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan.